Okay, let's unpack this. We're grabbing our passports today, metaphorically speaking, and heading to Southeast Asia for a real deep dive.
Yes, specifically Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We're going to explore the world of short-term rentals there. It's a really buzzing market.
It is. And for this deep dive, we're relying entirely on an article provided by moveandstay.com. And what's interesting about them is their specific focus. They've been helping people, particularly business travelers and expats, find places to work and stay across Asia for, what, over 25 years now?
That's right, whether it's just for a day, a week, or even a month.
Yeah.
So they really know this space inside out.
Exactly. So our mission today, using their insights, is to really cut through the noise. We want to give you the essentials on KL short-term rentals.
We'll look at what they are, fundamentally, why you might pick one over, say, a hotel, and then dive into the trickier stuff like the legal side of things, which the article calls a bit of a maze.
Right. And also finding the right neighborhood, understanding the market stats, and importantly, how to make sure your stay is safe and successful.
KL's a fantastic city, but yeah, figuring out accommodation can feel overwhelming. This article is like our guide, especially tailored for someone coming in for work or a longer visit.
So where do we start? What are we actually talking about when we say short-term rentals in KL?
Okay, so the article defines it pretty clearly. It's basically an alternative to a traditional hotel.
Not just a room, though.
Exactly. You're renting a whole place, could be an apartment, a condo, sometimes even a whole house.
But crucially, it's for a limited time.
Right. Not a long-term lease.
Yeah.
Could be just one night, could be a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months. Think platforms like Airbnb, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. And what types of places are common in KL, according to the source?
Well, there's a good range. Apartments are super common. You find everything from basic studios right up to luxury penthouses, often right downtown.
Then you mentioned condominiums. How are they different?
Similar living space to apartments, but they're usually in bigger developments with added facilities. That's the key difference.
Ah, like swimming pools, gyms?
Exactly. Maybe better security too, stuff like that.
Okay. What else?
The article mentions houses too. Obviously gives you more space and privacy, probably better for families or groups, though maybe less common for short stays right in the city center.
And one more category, which seems quite relevant for the business focus.
Yes, serviced apartments.
Yeah.
These are kind of a hybrid. You get the space and feel of an apartment, but with some hotel-like services thrown in.
Like cleaning, laundry.
Yeah, regular cleaning, maybe laundry services, sometimes even concierge. It blends independence with convenience.
Okay, that makes sense. So we know the types. Why would someone actually choose one of these options over a standard hotel in KL? What are the big draws?
The article points out some really practical benefits, especially, as you said, for business travelers or expats staying a while.
Let's hear them.
First up, just more space. Simple as that. Compared to a standard hotel room, you usually get significantly more room to breathe. Separate living areas, maybe.
Which is huge if you're there for weeks, right? Not just living out of a suitcase.
Totally. Then there's the kitchen facilities. This is often a massive plus.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Being able to cook.
Saves money, definitely. But also great if you have dietary needs or you just, get tired of eating out constantly. It makes it feel more like home.
And that ties into the next point, I guess, the local experience.
It does. You're often staying in residential buildings or neighborhoods, not tourist bubbles. You shop where locals shop, you get a better feel for the actual city rhythm.
A more authentic vibe.
Exactly. And finally, it can be cost-effective, especially for longer stays.
How so?
Well, when you add up the nightly rate over weeks or months, plus factor in saving money by cooking some meals, it can often work out cheaper than a hotel of a similar standard.
So overall, it's offering this blend of comfort, space, and practicality. That home away from home idea.
That's the pitch.
Yeah.
But it's not all straightforward. We need to talk about the legal side.
Ah, yes, the maze, as the article put it. What's the situation?
Well, it seems a bit complex. There aren't specific laws that completely outlaw platforms like Airbnb or similar.
Okay.
But the government is apparently working on clearer regulations. So for hosts, the key message is you absolutely have to stay informed about changes.
And it's not just citywide rules, right?
No, that's a crucial point in the source. You also have to check rules from local authorities and the specific building management. Some condos have their own bans or strict rules.
And you can't just plead ignorance if you get caught breaking them.
Nope. The article is clear on that. Hosts also generally need to deal with registration requirements.
Screening.
Registering with the right authorities, and also complying with the Tourism Tax Act 2017. That involves collecting a small tourist tax per room, per night. How it's collected can depend on the platform, though.
Okay. And taxes on the income itself?
Yes, definitely. Tax obligations. Any money earned from renting out your place is subject to Malaysian income tax.
So keeping good records is vital.
Absolutely essential. Income, expenses, all of it. The article gives some illustrative examples of tax calculation.
Like based on income brackets?
Yeah, showing how the percentage increases with income. But the main takeaway isn't the specific numbers. It's that A, the income is taxable, and B, because it can get complicated, getting professional tax advice is really, really recommended for hosts.
Right. So this whole picture, regulations evolving, maybe not always strictly enforced, building rules, tax. It does sound like a bit of a challenge to navigate.
It definitely adds a layer of complexity for both hosts and guests. You want to be sure the place you're booking is, operating correctly.
Okay, shifting gears from the legal stuff to something more practical for the visitor location. Where should you actually stay in KL? It's a big place.
It really is. And the article stresses how much location affects your experience. It depends on your priorities.
Like, if you want to be in the middle of everything.
Then the city center, KLCC area, is the obvious choice. You're right there, close to the Petronas Towers, shopping malls, lots of restaurants, good transport links. The article calls it right in the heart of the action.
Right, this trade-off.
Usually higher prices, and it can be pretty noisy and busy.
So what if you want something maybe a bit more local, less touristy?
Then you look at what the article calls the trendy neighborhoods, places like Bangsar.
What's Bangsar known for?
It's mentioned as having great nightlife and being popular with expats. A bit more of a relaxed vibe during the day, but still lively.
Any others?
Mont Kiara is another one highlighted, described as more family-oriented. Generally, these areas are quieter than the absolute center, but still well-connected.
And that connection point seems critical. Proximity to public transport.
Hugely important in KL. Traffic can be intense. Being near an LRT or monorail station makes getting around so much easier, especially during rush hour.
The article flags any key transport hubs.
Yeah, KL Central is the main hub connecting various train lines, including the Airport Express, and Bukit Bintang, while central and busy, is well served by the monorail.
So the advice is really, think about why you're in KL business meetings, sightseeing, family visit, and pick the neighborhood that fits best.
Exactly. Match the location to your needs.
Okay. Let's talk about the market itself. Does the article give us any numbers or trends?
It does offer some interesting stats.
Yeah.
For occupancy rates, it says KL has a decent average of around 56%.
Meaning just over half the available rentals are occupied on average.
Yeah, averaged across the year. Obviously, it goes up and down with tourist seasons and events.
What about prices? The average daily rate ADR?
The article quotes an average ADR of around MYR 42, that's Malaysian ringgit.
42 ringgit, that seems low.
Well, that's the average across everything, from basic rooms perhaps, right up to luxury places. So it varies wildly in reality.
Ah, okay. So that number alone isn't super helpful without context.
Right. It depends hugely on the specific property type, location, amenities, time of year. The article does give an example, saying a two-bedroom apartment could potentially earn up to about MYR 10,131 per year. But again, that's just an illustration of potential, not a guarantee.
Got it. What about the number of listings? Is the market growing?
Oh, yeah. Substantial growth is the phrase used. The source mentions a specific number, 19,278 Airbnb listings in KL.
Wow, nearly 20,000 on just one platform.
It's a lot. And here's a really interesting point the article makes.
Yes.
It states that a significant portion of these listings are operating without the required licenses.
Really? So linking back to the legal maze.
Exactly. It suggests that while rules exist, the enforcement isn't necessarily strict across the board. That's a pretty direct observation from the source.
That's quite revealing about the market reality. Does it give any other price indicators? Maybe monthly rates?
It does provide a table with average monthly rental estimates, which gives another angle, roughly. One bedroom around 2,500 MYR, two bedroom 3,500, three bedroom 4,000, and a four bedroom around 6,100 MYR per month.
Okay, those figures give a better sense of ongoing costs. So understanding these trends, the occupancy, the sheer number of listings, and especially that point about licensing helps everyone, right? Guests know what to expect price-wise, hosts see the competition and the regulatory reality.
Definitely. It paints a picture of a vibrant but somewhat loosely regulated market.
All right, so armed with all that background, let's get practical. How do you actually choose the right place and ensure a safe stay?
The article offers some solid common sense advice here. It really boils down to balancing your needs, what's out there, and your budget.
So key factors to consider when you're browsing listings.
First, back to location. Can't stress it enough. Does it fit your KL plans? How easy is it to get around from there?
Then budget. Be realistic. Remember potential extra fees, cleaning, service charges on the platform.
Yep. And list your non-negotiable amenities. Is fast Wi-Fi critical? Do you need a full kitchen? Air conditioning is pretty standard in KL, but double check. Washing machine. Think about your daily needs.
And the big one.
Reviews. Always. Always read them. Don't just look at the stars.
Look for patterns in the comments.
Exactly. Multiple people mentioning the same positive thing. Great. Multiple people mentioning slow Wi-Fi or noise from construction next door. Pay attention.
Good tip. Any advice on finding the best rated places?
Check various platforms if you can. Look for those host badges like Superhost or similar quality indicators. And really study the photos and descriptions. Do they seem accurate and professional?
Okay. Now, what about safety and security? Renting someone's apartment isn't quite the same as a hotel with staff.
True. The article highlights things hosts should provide for guest safety. Think working smoke detectors, maybe carbon monoxide detectors, a basic first aid kit.
Secure locks, too, obviously.
Absolutely. Secure locks on doors and windows. And providing clear emergency contact information, local police, ambulance, building security, or management.
What about insurance? That's often a gray area.
It is. The source points out standard home insurance often doesn't cover short-term renting. So hosts should really look into specific host protection insurance offered by platforms or third parties.
And for guests?
Good travel insurance is always recommended, covering your belongings and potential trip disruptions or medical issues.
And emergency plans.
Hosts should ideally have clear emergency procedures, figured out what to do in case of fire, medical emergency, power outage, etc. And communicating the basics of this to guests is helpful. Shows they've thought about safety.
Yeah, provides peace of mind.
Definitely.
Okay, so you found the place, booked it, considered safety. What about making the most of the actual stay?
Good communication with the host remains key, according to the article.
Before and during.
Both. Ask questions before booking if anything's unclear. Coordinate your arrival smoothly. And during the stay, if any small issue pops up, let the host know promptly. Their responsiveness is a good sign.
The article mentioned agents too.
Yeah, it suggests that if you're very unfamiliar with KL, or perhaps face a language barrier, using a local rental agent could potentially help streamline communication.
Makes sense. And the house rules.
Read them. Seriously. Understand the house rules, check-in out times, noise policies, rules about extra guests, smoking, pets. They're usually all laid out.
And respect them, obviously.
Absolutely. Ask if anything's unclear. Following the rules just makes for a smoother experience for everyone involved.
And beyond just the rental itself, how to maximize the KL experience.
Do a bit of homework. Research things to do near where you're staying, look up local restaurants, figure out the best transport routes, use the amenities too. If there's a pool or gym, take advantage.
Basically, be prepared and communicate well.
That's a good summary. It helps make that home away from home feeling a reality.
Okay, so wrapping this up. Pulling together everything from the moveinstay.com article, it paints a picture of KL's short-term rental scene as really dynamic. Lots of choice.
Definitely vibrant. Options ranging from basic to luxury, apartments to service suites.
But, and this seems like a crucial takeaway from the source, it's also a market where regulation isn't always strictly enforced. That observation about a significant portion of listings operating without licenses is quite telling.
It really is. It highlights a key dynamic that anyone involved, whether you're renting or thinking of hosting, needs to be aware of.
So the bottom line is, do your homework.
Yeah.
Be informed. Whether you're a guest checking reviews and host responsiveness or a potential host understanding the rules and tax obligations.
Precisely.
Which leads to maybe a final thought, building on that observation from the source. With this rapid growth in listings and the fact that many seem to operate in a gray area, what does that mean for the future balance in KL? You know, the balance between offering flexible accommodation and ensuring consistent standards, safety, and proper compliance.
That's a really interesting question to ponder. How will the city, the platforms, and the hosts navigate that tension moving forward? It definitely underscores the need for diligence right now in this evolving landscape.
Something for you, the listener, to mull over as you consider any KL plans. It certainly requires careful navigation.
Indeed.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into KL's short-term rentals, using the great insights provided by moveandstay.com.
My pleasure. It's always interesting to explore these evolving travel landscapes.